Hey, good Thursday afternoon, everybody. I'm KHOU11 meteorologist Tim Pandajis here with your tropical update. We've got a brand new system sitting off the southeast coast of the United States. This is PTC number 16, potential tropical cyclone, meaning it'll become a tropical cyclone, just not quite there yet to satisfy the criteria to get a name. It's going to affect the U.S. East Coast this weekend, bringing impacts from the southeast to the mid-Atlantic and eventually into New England. Today is Thursday, the 21st day of September. Here's the National Hurricane Center cone, and that's one benefit to declaring this a PTC is we get a cone, and it also allows the National Hurricane Center to put out watches and warnings because this system is already going to be impacting land in the short term, even likely before it gets a name. So it's expected to strengthen and obtain tropical characteristics here likely over the next 24 hours. 40-mile-per-hour winds puts it at a tropical storm. The next name on the list is Ophelia or Philippe. Why I say two different names is because we also have another wave out in the Atlantic that's got high odds of developing in the next 7 days. Those odds right now are at 80%. So Ophelia or Philippe. This will most likely be Ophelia. Drifting to the north, potentially making landfall right around sunrise Saturday morning as a higher-end tropical storm with winds sustained 60-65 miles per hour with higher gusts, especially along the coastline. Moves over land, begins to weaken down to 45-mile-an-hour winds by Saturday evening just north of southeastern Virginia, and then it takes a hard northeast turn, impacting southern New England, likely with some breezy conditions and also a lot of rain. So I talked about how the National Hurricane Center is now able to put out watches and warnings. Here they are, tropical storm warnings for the entire North Carolina coastline, up into coastal Virginia as well, and even down into South Carolina, tropical storm watch. What's the difference? Well, a watch means that tropical storm conditions are possible within the next 48 hours. A warning is that upgrade from a watch. That means tropical storm conditions are now expected, likely within 36 hours, so you get a little bit of some lead time. Here's how it looks on infrared satellite imagery. It's not all that impressive, kind of doesn't resemble anything close to a tropical system. That's because it is really battling against some pretty moderate to even strong wind shear that's coming out of the west to southwest, and you can see it better here on visible satellite. All of the convection activity is well displaced to the north and east, and the center here is almost fully exposed because of that west-southwest wind shear displacing all of that convection away from the center there. It's going to have to really wrap that convection around the entire center before we can see it really beginning to organize. Here's a look at those upper level winds right now, west to southwest is that wind shear that's keeping it pretty much disorganized at the moment. It will be moving over very warm waters. Now, this is well to the west of the sea surface scar left behind by Hurricane Lee and Hurricane Franklin that you can see way off to the east here. Slightly cooler sea surface temperatures are present, but off to the west, still very warm, and it will likely track over, well, it will track over the Gulf Stream, which is just a river of very warm waters coming up from the south. Waters there in the mid-80s, so plenty of warm water energy for this system to use to possibly get a last-minute boost in intensity before landfall in North Carolina early Saturday morning. So what looks to be the impacts from PTC 16? Well, rainfall, obviously, a tropical system, anywhere from 2 to maybe as high as 6 inches or locally higher amounts there. That introduces freshwater flooding to the equation. Winds, coastal locations will see the brunt of it. Those winds coming onshore, less friction over the ocean water, so you're seeing the higher wind gusts there. Coastal locations could see gusts up and over 60 miles per hour. That would lead to some power outages. Coastal flooding for multiple tidal cycles, meaning moderate to high coastal erosion is likely, especially along the Outer Banks. Power outages here, moderate to high, again, mainly in coastal locations, maybe spreading a little bit farther inland as well. Here's the likelihood of encountering tropical storm force winds. 39 miles per hour or greater. This is a product put out by the National Hurricane Center. Highest odds still are only at 50-55% along the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Moving a little bit farther to the north, again, this is farther out in the forecast period, puts D.C. and Richmond under 10% odds of encountering winds of 39 miles per hour or greater, slightly higher closer to the coastline. However, when we look at computer models here, this is our in-house high-resolution model going out to tomorrow afternoon. We're looking at wind gusts surpassing tropical storm force in most coastal locations. In fact, along the Outer Banks could see gusts up and over 60 miles per hour. Certainly not outside of the realm of possibility, dependent on how strong this system gets before it moves up and over land. Here it is at this point in time, still just offshore, still strengthening. The center of low pressure does drift over land, becoming into early Saturday morning, according to this model. Gusty winds along coastal areas, even inland. Raleigh could see wind gusts over 40 miles per hour. Getting into Saturday morning, now it's inland. We're seeing gusts extending all the way up the eastern seaboard through the mid-Atlantic, up and over 30, 35 miles per hour, and right through Saturday afternoon. Breezy conditions all throughout the mid-Atlantic and up into New England as well, as the system begins to decay, but still has plenty of tropical moisture to work with in terms of rainfall. With the persistent onshore winds and the trajectory of this storm, we're looking at storm surge threats through most of coastal Carolina, North Carolina. 2 to 4 foot storm surge is a possibility here, all the way up into southeastern Virginia. On both sides, north and south, 1 to 3 foot storm surge is possible as well. So keep that in mind. That is definitely going to be an impact here over the next couple of days as we do watch the storm surge forecast for what will likely be Ophelia. So here's a look at our in-house high-resolution models showing the track and the projected radar imagery here as we get on into Friday morning, 7 a.m. I want you to take note of where the center of this model indicates Ophelia could possibly be, overlaid with the National Hurricane Center cone. It is favoring a far western track, even potentially outside of that track there, meaning it's moving up and farther to the west and potentially northwest, making a landfall maybe closer to Wilmington, Morehead City, as we get into late Friday night and early Saturday morning. Here we are with the center. Here's the forecast cone from the Hurricane Center, offset and outside of it here, potentially over Wilmington, bringing the heavier rain bands up and inland. And look at by Saturday midday, we've got the outermost rain bands stretching up into New England, maybe even getting some onshore flow here coming in off the water in southeastern Virginia. This could introduce some spin in the atmosphere and maybe a minor tornado threat areas off to the west. Off to the east of the center if it moves farther west and inland. Then it builds inland into New England, and we've got plenty of rain coming on down through the day on Sunday, making for a rather wet weekend. How much rain could we see with this? Well, this is that same model I just showed you, and its rainfall output right immediately as it makes landfall, potentially over 6 inches of rain in places like Wilmington, and then spreading out a bit, 2, 3, 4 inches of rain potentially as it spreads up into New England and the mid-Atlantic. I want to show you for comparison how the GFS model is handling things. Much drier in places like Wilmington, because this favors a track a little bit farther to the east, bringing the swath of heaviest rain over into places like Richmond, the I-64 corridor, and south of there, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches of rain, and then about an inch or two as you get up into the mid-Atlantic and portions of southern New England, where it really starts to rain itself out, and we just kind of see scattered showers and storms. There is no tropical activity at the moment in the Gulf of Mexico, but I mentioned that other tropical wave that's way out here in the main development region of the Atlantic. That's got an 80% chance of developing and getting a name on the list. We've still got Nigel out there too, still a Category 1 hurricane, moving on off towards the north, not impacting anybody. So we've gone through 14 names. Ophelia is up next, and then Philippe, and then Rena and Sean on the list too. That's the latest in the Tropical Outlook. Keep in touch. I'm on all the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We'll see you again tomorrow.